Hello YouTube, Plains Prepper here. Over the last several months I've been working on increasing some of my more practical skills, and one of those has been woodworking. I've been doing few projects here and there. I finally managed to acquire myself a table saw. This is actually an old beater my dad had sit out in his garage for the last 10 years. I'm going to have to do a little bit of maintenance on it before I can use it, and I thought I'd share that with you guys to see if it helps anybody else that might have to do something similar to this. I am by no means an expert, so I'll be learning as I go and figuring things out as I go. What I'm going to have to do is, for one, clean all the rust off of it. I'll be using a right angle grinder, a wire brush, screwdriver, just about anything I can to pick the dust and rust out of here. I also picked up some Naval jelly. I'm told this should take rust right off of metal with no problem, and I'll be going over how to use that, as I'd never heard of it before, so I'm sure somebody else out there's never heard of it, and maybe it'll help them. I'm going to have to make a new fence for this. You can see this one's not exactly straight. From the store my dad said they set a combine engine block on it and bent it. This is an old saw, so it's all cast iron, so it weighs a metric ton. The other thing I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be replacing the cord on it. It's an old cracked cord and it's just a fire hazard waiting to happen. I'll also be replacing the switch down here, as it's on the back of the saw, so I really don't want to be reaching over my saw blade or my workpiece to try and shut the saw off. And it's old and cracked, and like I said, just a fire waiting to happen. I won't show every step of this because I'm sure nobody wants to watch me grind on metal for hours on end, but I will be sharing little bits here and there, and I will be sharing the final product. So without further ado, let's get started. So I don't know if you can tell here, but this is after my first initial grind. I realized about 3/4 of the way through I should have taken a before picture, or a close-up before picture anyway. You can kind of see now the metal's starting to shine up. There is some pitting, especially right here. I don't think that's going to affect cutting with the saw, as the miter slots are more or less intact. I might do a little more grinding on this before I'm using a wire brush, by the way. I'm not using a grinder wheel. A little more grinding and try to get some more of the surface rust off of here, and then I'll give it a good wipe down before I use the petroleum jelly. I don't know if the petroleum jelly would have taken all this off to start with, but I've only been at this for about 10 minutes with the grinder, and it's already looking way better than it was. It's actually got a little bit of a look of steel to it instead of just rust. So I'll get back to grinding here, and I'll give you an update when I get that far. Alright, I don't know how well the camera's picking that up, but that's the second pass over with the wire brush and the grinder. I think that's probably going to be good. I've got most of the surface rust off, at least the stuff that's going to come off with the grinder without a lot of nitpicking. Now I'll probably give this a good wipe down, and we'll get started with the Naval jelly. Next, I'm using some Loctite Naval Jelly Rust Dissolver to get rid of anything else that I missed with the grinder. I found this at Ace, but it's probably available at any hardware or big box store. This was in the rust removal section of the paint department, which was kind of odd. I looked all over and walked right past it 3 times before I finally had to have a sales associate take me to it. It's pretty simple from what I understand. Find the instructions here. Basically, you remove the surface rust, wipe it down. I'll have to go get some gloves here. Basically, scrape away the loose dirt, brush on liberally, wait 10 minutes, and then you rinse it off with fresh water. This stuff is caustic, and it is, well, poisonous, so don't eat it or drink it or anything like that. I mean, it goes without saying. And read the safety instructions should you get it in your eyes or down your throat or whatever. It'll also remove paint, so just be aware of that. Any paint left on this thing needs to come off anyway. I'm debating about whether I'm going to try and clean the rest of it up and repaint it, or if I'll just get the cutting surface fixed and not worry about the rest or worry about it later. So without further ado, we'll get to painting this stuff on. Alright, now to apply this, I'm going to be using just one of these little foam brushes, and I've got an old sock rag here just to wipe up any excess. I figure I'll just pour it on there and wipe it around. Now I don't know how much this you'll be able to see, but the pink is the navel jelly. I spread it on there pretty thick, and it's even already starting to dry up. So I guess now we play the waiting game and wait till it's dry, or wait 5-10 minutes, whichever comes first, and we wipe it off. So while I was waiting for the navel jelly to dry, I decided I would go ahead and work on replacing the cord. Unfortunately, it meant I had to take the motor off to get to the wiring, which is going to suck to put it back on, but what you going to do? One of the things I did was I took this little electrical box off. There's actually like a, I don't know, washer or something there that's screwed on there, but it was so rusted, it was basically fused into one piece. And this is kind of where my first little tip from this project comes from, is that no matter what you do in your shop, you will never have a complete toolkit unless you have one of these, a BFH. If you don't know what that is, go look it up. It's going to be one of your most used tools next to a screwdriver. Now that the navel jelly's had about 10 or 15 minutes to dry, I'm going to go ahead and I got a bucket of water here. I'm just going to wet a rag and wipe her down, get all this stuff off of here. You want to make sure you get all this off here because it'll continue to react as long as it's on there. It's kind of like rifle bluing, and I guess this stuff will also take off rifle bluing, so if you're looking to re-blue a rifle and you want to get all the old stuff off first, this would be the stuff to use. So I guess we'll get to clean this stuff up. Well, looks like that's about all there is to it. This has definitely taken a lot of the rust out of here. If I wanted it to be shiny, I guess I could probably keep applying this and letting it take off more and more, but it ain't pretty, but it'll work. And the rust is gone, so I can run a board over this without smearing it, and the channels are clean now, or the miter channels, which is what I was worried about most, because I want to be able to make straight cuts with this. I guess the next thing is I'll get back to that motor and get that switch moved around, and when I get it back on here, I'll check back in with you. And here is the finished product. I'm going to wait for another video to show building the outfeed rails and the new fence. In the meantime, I went and got a clamp-on straight edge to use for building the fence and any future projects until I get the fence built. This black cord here is the new cord I put on it. I ended up just getting I went and got a 16 gauge heavy duty extension cord and cut the end off of it, and that's what I used for rewiring the motor and rewiring the switch. As far as I can tell, it was the same gauge as what was on there,
so I'm hoping it's all up to code, I guess. I'll be checking the cord as I use it and seeing if it gets hot. If it does get hot, I'll have to rewire it with something heavier, but for now it's working fine. I put the switch right there. I tried mounting it up here, but with the cross hatching underneath the table, I wasn't able to get it to find anywhere to bolt on, and I ended up having to drill out and replace a lot of the internal screws for the mounting the switch, which wasn't a big deal, just kind of a pain. And then I see that underneath of here is it's still really accessible. It's only about 5 inches there that it's out of sight, but it also means I can't bump it with my hip and turn this on accidentally. Some further improvements I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to put some penetrating oil and grease both of these wheels. They do have full range of motion right now, but they are really stiff. The more I use them, I'm sure they'll loosen up, but for now they are in working condition. This blade, despite being rusty, is actually relatively sharp, so I don't think I'll be replacing it just now. I do have another saw blade from my radial arm saw that I can throw on there when this one gets dull. And the next improvement I probably will make, besides the fence and the out feed tables, is I plan on building a box to cover this up. I plan on putting it basically level with this table here, but below these miter slots, because I don't want to interfere with them, and I don't currently have a router to cut more miter or extend these. But I want to cover this up, just A, to keep it sawdust from getting all over it, but B, I don't like the idea of I'm moving pulley out and about. This probably won't, it'll probably be up against a wall or somewhere where it won't cause too many problems, or where I won't be walking, but it just bugs me sitting out like that, so I'll figure out a way to fix that. But for now, this is Plains Prepper signing out.